What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be reviewing Godzilla vs. Kong, Sometimes Friends Fight, But They Always Make Up. Did this book's title spoil the ending of the film, or were they just going to write this book anyways? Considering that Mechagodzilla is Godzilla and Kong's friend in this book, I would say they probably were just going to write it anyways, but it's especially fitting that Godzilla and Kong became friends at the end of this movie. Sort of, kind of, but they definitely weren't friends for most of it. I guess I was pretty surprised when I got it to see the size. I was expecting something a little bigger. Not that this is a problem, I actually prefer this. This is a good size for this type of book. This is a very young children's book, and so very young children are going to want to get their hands on it, and it's perfect size for that. So this is very well thought out. One thing that I really appreciate about this is that it's one of those books where you can kind of run your hand across it and feel it, you know? I'm not going to really be able to describe it very well, but like Kong and Godzilla and the Empire State Building here, they have this rubbery feel. They stick up off the book a little bit. It's got a little depth to it. As a little kid, maybe this was just me, I don't know, but as a little kid, I used to really like running my hands across books like this, children's books like this. It was just like a way that I could feel the characters. And so as a kid, if I had a Godzilla vs. Kong book and I could rub my hands across it and feel Kong and Godzilla, that would have been awesome. So it's just like a really weird thing that I noticed, but it is something that I noticed that as a kid I would have really appreciated, and so I appreciate that this is one of those books. Plus, it just makes it feel a little more professional as well. Now this is like a cardboard kind of book. The hardness actually might preserve it for longer with kids. They might not be able to cause as much damage by crinkling the pages and whatnot. So this is another probably smart way to go. I guess me just being me, I always think like, what's the worst thing that could happen? To read the back of the box description here, we have learn about friendship with Godzilla and Kong. Count along with these giant monsters as they share 10 ways to be a good friend. This book was developed by Kate B. Jerome, illustrations done by Carol Herring. And that's the first thing you're going to notice is the art, for sure. It's super bright, super colorful. Of course, you got all these colors, and then when you actually open it up, each page has a new color, so there's a different feel for all of it, and it's really nice, so it will keep your kid engaged. The art's super cute. I particularly like the way that Kong is drawn. Godzilla's drawn okay. I like Godzilla as well. He's got big silly teeth, and so, you know, it's like a children's version of the MonsterVerse versions of these characters. But for me, I particularly like the way that Kong is drawn, and I especially like the detailing where they added the scarring on his chest. It's good, you know, you can recognize it as the MonsterVerse Kong. One thing I wasn't expecting with this book, and maybe it's just because I didn't read the description or anything before I purchased it, is that it is a counting book. So it's not just teaching friendship lessons, it's also counting. So on page 1, for instance, count 1 tall tower, and of course you have the 1 tall tower here in the middle to count. Jump forward a little bit and you have count 4 clouds, and then you have the clouds in the sky to count. So that was one thing I wasn't expecting. It's again another little thing to keep kids engaged, and it will make them more invested in the book. I guess with the book called Godzilla vs. Kong, Sometimes Friends Fight, But They Always Make Up, I was expecting it to be a little bit more like conflict resolution between children. So I figured it was probably going to be about like, well, you and your friends might disagree, but here are ways to work through your disagreements. That's not really what the book is at all. It's just lessons about being a good friend, being like good friends are, you can rely on each other, you'll always help each other, you'll be nice to each other, you'll play with each other, that kind of thing. I guess maybe what I was thinking would be for a little bit older of an audience. This one's definitely tends towards the very young crowd. I mean, the back of the book says that it's for age 0, so, you know, very young kids. I guess what I was thinking would probably be a little bit more for like the 5 or 6 year old crowd, you know, once they get into school and they might start having disagreements with their friends. I will say it's a little bit of a bold choice to go with Godzilla vs. Kong, Sometimes Friends Fight, But They Make Up. It's particularly a bold choice to include Mechagodzilla in the action. Here's again the fun little illustrations done by Carol Herring. I think as a kid, and this would just be me because I was such a big Godzilla and Kong fan, it might confuse me and maybe even annoy me that Godzilla and Kong aren't fighting. I know I'm a weird kid, but that's what it would have stuck out to me because I did grow up with these movies. So maybe if your kid hasn't necessarily seen Godzilla vs. Kong, they just know who Godzilla and Kong are. It'll be fun to see these characters. And that is one thing, is as a kid, I would jump for any opportunity I could find to get a children's book like this. So to get a book with Godzilla and Kong in it, that'd be one thing to begin with, and that's all I'd need. But I am the type of kid who, as a kid, would be like, well, wait a minute, Mechagodzilla is definitely not their friend. I would say most kids probably probably aren't going to have that issue. Most kids aren't probably going to be looking at this the same way I did, because again, I was kind of a strange kid and I was so connected to these movies that it would have even stuck out to me as a young kid. But ultimately, most kids are going to be totally fine with it. Actually, I would say probably almost every kid is going to be totally okay with it and won't make any difference to them. They will just be happy to have Godzilla and Kong in a book together, and especially like me at 1 or 2 years old, the last thing I'm thinking about is that Mechagodzilla shouldn't be their friend. That's, again, I guess I'm still in like the 5 or 6 year old mindset. That is something that would have stuck out to me as like a 5 or 6 year old for sure. I don't remember many of the details of the book Who's Afraid of Godzilla. I think that's what it was called. It was a children's book, but I rented it from my school's library in elementary school, and that was a book that I always remembered reading and being like, well, actually none of that even happened. I've seen the movies and none of that happens in the movies. Like, I couldn't differentiate it from the films, so 5 or 6 year old me would have been confused by this. But younger kids are gonna love it. I think it's a good lesson book. I do think that they could have done something interesting with the conflict resolution idea. I think that's an interesting aspect to explore for your 5 or 6 year old crowds. Again, when you're going into elementary school and you're having disagreements with friends, talking about ways to talk to each other and work things out and problem solve, that's another interesting aspect they could have gone with. This one doesn't really go for it. This one, again, is just all about being a good friend. What are good friends? What do they do? How do you be a good friend? What does that look like? For instance, the picture that's the cover's sake, the lesson here is that a good friend lifts you up when you're falling down. And of course, you have Kong helping Godzilla up when he's falling down. For me, particularly, my favorite piece of art in this thing, I find it personally funny, but also I really like the look of it. It's number 7. A good friend lights the way when you're in the dark. I'm a big fan of the nighttime aesthetic. You guys know I love the Kong Northern Lights look, so this again kind of goes along with that, the really cool blues. And one thing that I find particularly funny here is Godzilla and Kong, they're friends, they're walking around together, they're happy. Godzilla's lighting the way with his dorsal plates, which is really cool. That's a nice, cute use of the dorsal plates and the lighting up of them. That's really cool. But if you look in the background, just the whole city's trashed, cars are flipped over, and definitely destruction and damage has been caused. And if you'll notice, Mechagodzilla's never in the book after that one time, so who's to say what caused that destruction? Maybe it was a best friend buddy WrestleMania slam down on Mechagodzilla. But I definitely recommend this. Again, this is for your very young crowd, so like 0 to 5 range probably is who's gonna really appreciate this book. For me as a kid, just having Godzilla and Kong, I would have loved it in a children's book. Again, the idea that I can feel them, that was always something that really stuck out to me. The art's very cute, it's very colorful, definitely palatable for kids, nothing scary, so it's pretty good for young kids. And I think as a parent, it's just like, it's a really quick read, so if you're trying to read your kid something before bed, super speedy read. So I think it's pretty good. I definitely recommend it. And that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you all for watching. Especially thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. Everybody who supports the Patreon, it goes a really long way towards supporting the channel, and I really appreciate it. Also, if you support the Patreon, you can get perks like the Discord community, early access to videos, requesting videos, and so on. Alright, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man, out. My favorite lesson in this book is that a good friend finds ways not to fight with Godzilla and Kong. I wonder if anyone told Godzilla and Kong that.